Matthew Green was born December 28, 1915. He passed away December 16, 2006, just a couple of weeks before his 91st birthday. He was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and he played in the United States Chess Championships of 1940 and 1942. He was the New Jersey State Chess Champion in 1957, the year this New Jersey Open was played. I'm assuming that state residency was required for the title to be conferred. So even though Bobby Fischer won the event, the title, let's go look at this article. It says scoring 6.5 1/2, a draw with Dr. Ariel Mengarini. Bobby Fischer added the New Jersey State Open title to his growing collection. Anthony Seide was second with 6-1, losing one game to Fischer. Third and fourth in the 81-player Swiss with 5.5 to 1.5 each were Feuerstein and Sobel. Feuerstein lost to Seide and drew with Sobel. Sobel lost to Fischer. Fifth to ninth with 5-2 scores were Matthew Green, James Sherwin, Leonard Burns, Mitchell Salzberg, and Leroy Dubik. And it gives 10th to 21st, and a bunch of names. Well, it doesn't give any details. Either the New Jersey State Open was different than the New Jersey Championship, or it's very possible that Matthew Green was the highest ranked New Jersey resident. Anyway, there's the article from Chess Life magazine, clipped and pasted onto your screen. Let's get on with the game against Matthew Green. Bobby still in those days playing the King's Indian attack from time to time, which begins with Richard Retti's opening. Knight f6, g3 is the King's Indian attack. g6 is the symmetrical defense. Bishop g2, bishop g7, castles, very symmetrical. d3, and here Matthew Green breaks the symmetry with c5. Usually e4 is played here, but Bobby with knight b, d2. Knight c6, and now e4, and d6 transposes back. a4, rook b8, knight c4, b6, e5. Pawn takes the pawn. You see the arrow indicating knight e8 that has been played a couple of times. Why did white play a4? To stop black from playing b5, perhaps? That would be my guess. Coming back to this move, knight to e8 has been played a few times. Spacelim, greetings. But in this game, pawn takes the pawn. Yes, exactly, Greyhound player. So to further elaborate, a4 prevents b5 so that the knight can come to c4 without being kicked by the b-man. So b6, e5, pawn takes the pawn. King's knight takes the pawn. Knight takes the knight, and knight takes the knight. And wouldn't he love to get his knight on c6 and fork the queen and the rook? But bishop b7 prevents that from happening, or does it? Bobby plays knight c6 anyway and says, let's force you to give up your bishop for my knight. And that is what Green plays. Now knight d5, opening this strong diagonal and isolating the white bishop here on c6. Bobby with rook e1, pawn e6, pawn c3, queen d6, demanding an account of this bishop, and that account is reckoned with bishop b5. Queen's rook to d8 here. Queen f3, h6, bishop d2, king h7, and now bishop c4. Pawn a5, queen e4. Pawn e5 is quite a curious looking move to undefend this knight, although we only have 2 attackers, so it's not clear how we could possibly exploit that. But rook e2, here comes f5 to hit the queen, queen h4. Now pawn f4 and queen h3. Rook f5, h5 being called for. I don't know. I mean, to me, the position still looks pretty equal regardless, and I don't put much stock in the Ficklebot inaccuracies. Well, g4 is played here, hitting the rook. Rook back to f7, now queen f3, and rook f to d7. A quiet king h1. He could come to the g1 square now with this rook, and I'm assuming that's the purpose of the king move. But this square is always available to him. Queen f6, and sure enough, rook g1 is played. Queen g5. Now, bishop c1, just to free up this rook. You don't want the rook tethered to the bishop. Rook d6. None of these moves liked by the bot. h3, and then he just goes back. All of these being marked inaccurate. King g2, queen h4, and it seems both players are struggling to come up with a plan or a way to improve. Bobby now doubles his rooks on the e-file. Now queen back to g5. It's clear black is just kind of trying to bide his time and just hold on for a draw. And I would say this is a pretty equal position. It's move 32. This was the 32nd move. So they may be feeling a bit of time pressure as well. Queen e4 was played here. And no surprise to see h5 really wanting to exploit this piece relationship. So queen back to f3 to support this pawn. Now bishop f6 and king h2 getting out of the queen's line of fire. Although that also gets a question mark, and I'm assuming it gets a question mark because it should be relatively easy for black to open the h-file. In fact, pawn takes pawn right here. Queen takes pawn, queen takes queen. Now, I might have been tempted if I were in black's shoes, since this file seems like it's going to open, to play king h6. What did the bot say? The bot said play queen to f5. Interesting. I'd kind of like to play king h6. I'm being told that's a mistake. But my idea is this. White obviously would like to control the g-file. But if you take here, you now have both rooks ready to slide over to h-file. That's kind of what was going through my mind. Well, queen takes queen, pawn takes queen. Oh, he plays king h6 here. So he has the same idea I had, just a different arrangement. King g2, okay, he plays pawn g5. I guess I don't understand. I certainly thought the purpose of king h6 was to play to g5. King f3, king g6. Now rook h1. I don't know why black dragged his feet. Bishop g7, and Bobby retracts his rook to e1. Now rook h8, rook takes rook, bishop takes rook, and rook h1. Bishop comes back to g7, now king e2. The rook comes to d6 here, the bishop to d2, knight to f6, hitting the pawn, pawn to f3, securing the g-man. Rook d8, pawn b4. Marked inaccurate. Apparently white should play bishop e1. Rook h8 by Matthew Green, and that is a mistake. He should go ahead and trade off. The bot actually calling for a takes b5. In this example, it shouldn't matter whether you take with the a-man or the c-man. Even though I said capture toward the center, it doesn't matter because white is going to have to capture back. So you take here, and then here, and then here, And it's exactly the same position either way. Well, rook h8 was played, so rook takes rook, bishop takes the rook. And now b takes a5. So we reach an endgame with two bishops against bishop and knight. White with one isolated pawn, black with two isolated pawns. And we shall see if that ends up being significant. Here Bobby plays bishop e6. Yeah, this is not the best bishop in the history of chess, is it? And Bobby vacating c4. How's black going to defend this pawn? I ask you, ladles and jelly spoons, how can black defend the a5 pawn? Just only a few moves ago, right here, black was equal. This is just equal right here. If black just trades off these pawns here, doesn't matter which way, again. Now you can play rook a8, for example, or bishop c8 and make your bishop better than it was. And this looks fairly equal. Let's come back. So rook h8, to me, is where the game really swings in white's favor. So rook takes rook, bishop takes rook, pawn takes the a-man, pawn takes the a-man, bishop e6, vacating c4 so that we can have a discovered attack against a5. Knight e8 is just too late. c4 unleashes the discovery. King f6, bishop d7, king e7, bishop takes the knight, and this is a happy sight for Bobby Fischer. This is all over now. It's just a matter of time and technique. Once we make this passed pawn, boom. And this pawn is ready to be attacked as well. So king d7, beelines it for that. And after king c6, okay, bishop f6 is going to be answered by bishop takes pawn. So I cannot imagine, and this just, here's exactly coming to favor 4. I mean, how bad does a bishop have to be for the bot to say you're better off letting white create another passed pawn than to leave that bishop in the corner? So king c6, but bishop d8 is the problem. Now you're going to have two passed pawns on opposite sides of the board. At least in the other line, both passed pawns are on the same side of the board in this line. Here you got two passed pawns, but at least they're on the same side of the board. Either way, white should be winning fairly easily from here. So after king c6, bishop d8, bishop g7, bishop takes pawn, king b6, bishop d8 check. And, of course, there's no stopping both pawns. Black resigned. You have to play king c6 here. And I'm just going to push my pawn, aren't I? You can try to blockade. I'll push the other one, I guess. So the king can take up residence here, and he can try to blockade here. But sooner or later, he's in Zugzwang, isn't he? This king is just going to come up and around. That's how I would do it. Or even here, I might just come here. That's even more better. Fork the bishop and the pawn. Then I'm picking up even more stuff. You can have the A-man. I'll let you have it. I'm generous. You can't stop everything here. So, yeah, I don't know what... I mean, obviously, black resigned, but it's just a massive wall here of control. A big barrier. And, okay, the green arrow is saying king f3. That's next. I'm going to bring my king in next and come up this way or this way. By the way, the numbers. I didn't give you the numbers on that first game. On this game, Bobby Fischer had an accuracy. With all those yellows, he still had an accuracy of 94.3 and a single game rating of 2750. He simply outplayed his opponent. Even though the opening was pretty balanced and the middle game was pretty equal, when black played that rook h8, he sealed his own fate. And, of course, Bobby didn't miss any opportunity in that endgame, did he?